Immaculate, going into this week, the last thing I thought I would see was certain sourcing on Twitter insinuating that Clemson and Florida State could be Big 12 schools because of a private equity deal that would be over $1 billion or possibly in the billions, where a company steps in, they get some sort of control over the Big 12, naming rights to the Big 12, you become the All-State 12, something. Is that enough? I mean, I've always thought it was just silly, the idea that Clemson and Florida State could come to the conference. Is it enough if the private equity deal is there to lure those two in?
Well, if we're talking possibilities, are we saying it's higher than 0%? I would say yes.
Okay.
Would I give it
you're really making me confident now.
If I had to give it a large percentage chance, I would probably say no.
Yeah.
That does not mean that cannot work in your favor with some of the other schools that are generally talked about as a Big 12 edition, and that you generally get some pushback on, because people would say, well, the pricing is the same, the payout is the same, and then we have exit fees and stuff to get out of. That is what there's been some pushback. I've talked with others about how I think you could use some of that money to help with their costs to get out.
Okay.
Now, when you talk Florida State and Clemson, you're talking about the two top value schools there. Is there much of a chance that the Big Ten and the SEC doesn't take them? Probably not. Especially considering Clemson didn't file their court case until after the CFP deal was done. And we saw how much of that was based upon previous experience, previous times in the CFP in the past. That's when Clemson's value rose up considerably.
Right.
That's when they did their lawsuit. Pretty much tells us that their value to say the SEC went up that day. So I find it very hard to believe that they would, either one of those schools would fall to the Big 12.
Yeah.
But if, say, like a Virginia Tech or North Carolina State or Louisville, one of these other schools is looking at saying, this is a straight across the board jump. We don't see how this is good for us. Okay, well, we have this money. We can help with all your costs to get out. So that way your future is more in check with us, and it's not costing you to come over here. Maybe that could be it. I'm not an expert in private equity, and if you could even use that to do that. Mm-hmm. But to me, if private equity is looking for an increase in value of the conference so that they can maybe sell their stake later down the road, a direct increase in the value of the conference via the addition of new schools gives them that value increase. So you might, if you're a private equity, you might want to do a quick flip, turnaround, sell your stake to another. It would be worth more because of those additions. So that's what I think about in that.
The where I want to start with the meat of what you give it, Clemson to me. I look at Texas. Texas could be bad at football for 5 or 10 years, and they're still going to be very valuable, profitable. The brand is still there. They have a lot of brand power. Same thing goes for Florida State, and both those schools have seen that. They've seen tough stretches in the last decade. I don't see Clemson, who historically has not been a money power, at the top. Why are we valuing Clemson so highly? Because if they're bad for 5 or 10 years, that brand is not going to stick.
It's a good point. I don't know. It's one of those unknowns. Does it last? Do they stay? Their crowd following is great.
Yeah.
I think that's probably going to stick. Their stadium is great. It's great for TV. So your network value is probably going to stick. In terms of the CFP, as long as they continue to use previous performance as a grade of what percentage payouts you're going to get for your conference, their value adds to a conference now in that regards. So I would lean towards they are, but there is some evidence to show that when they have fallen off a little bit, that their viewership has fallen off. So I might not give them the same grade as I would Florida State.
Yep.
But I'm still listing them as the number 2 value in that conference. Absolutely.
The SEC, the Big Ten, from what you've heard, are they up at the door waiting for Clemson to open? Are they knocking, waiting for Clemson to open it right now? Or is that a school that's still waiting on a landing spot because conferences aren't technically supposed to reach out yet?
I tend to think that these schools would not go to the lengths that Florida State and Clemson have gone to unless they have gotten some type of a wink and a nod.
Yeah.
However you want to say it came about, you're not going to that length, those costs, that effort, taking that PR hit all of that, especially considering Clemson did it right after those CFP meetings, unless you've heard from someone, okay, you're there. What they are is it's like a value increase for, like, say the SEC wants to add in North Carolina, and they have to take North Carolina State in order to get the board to allow it. And then you move into a Virginia school. Those are like territory grabs and moves and students, and there's a lot of things, but they're not huge moves for the network. So by them taking Clemson with that, you might make the network say, okay, this is a little bit more of a value add for TV to the ESPN. So that's where I look at it as I look at them as like a plus one with the networks. By bringing them in, it allows you to maybe bring in another school that's not as big to the network, but that you want in your conference for other reasons.
Going back to unpack, you mentioned Louisville or Pitt, or Virginia Tech, and NC State. Those seem to be the four that most people toss around. With the Big 12 getting close to this private equity deal that it just revolutionizes how conferences operate, does that give you a better shot of being of those four schools actively wanting to seek out the Big 12?
I think it gives you another round in the chamber. Okay. I'm not an expert on the financial side of that and exactly what you can do with that. And maybe the capital company wouldn't want you to use that money to bring in schools for legal reasons.
Yeah.
But I tend to think that if this is, all agreed upon in the end, that it helps you, because ESPN paid for Oklahoma and Texas to leave the Big 12 early and join the SEC. They gave them direct payments. So we do have a precedent for this happening. So yeah, I think it's an added effort and a help in that regard.
I wouldn't mind it. So that one out there, if those four schools are on the table, as a Big 12 podcast host, I would like to stay alive in general, and adding those four I think would not hurt. Immaculate, when it comes to being well connected, not just well connected, well researched and smart on these topics. I think smart's the right word. Nobody comes close to you. Where can listeners find more of your work?
Like you said, right now I'm largely just on Twitter, on X. Not doing as many of the shows. It's a lot of work with what's going on, but we're picking up now, so who knows? Yeah. But yeah, right now I'm just having a lot of fun, just hanging out and chatting with folks about it on X. That's where you can find me. You have me right there, Immaculate View. And by all means, reach out. I do like to answer to folks as they respond to me there. I learn a lot from others. I learn about their particular little situations with their schools, and we can't know everything. So the more people you have adding into the conversation, the better.
Love it. That is Immaculate at Immaculate View on Twitter/X. This is Locked On Big 12. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today. You've nailed it once again.
Well, like I said, I'm open to doing a lot more. I enjoy this with you. This is like the perfect amount of time.
Oh, yeah.
For keeping focus and discussing things. So as much as you want to do, I'm open to. And I think that you're going to have a lot of content here coming at you here within the next few weeks.
What a tease. What a tease. And we will certainly be all over that. There are very few who are as researched as you in this topic. And they're always information. Like, I learn when Immaculate comes. I learn things when I come to the show. This has been and always will be. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Locked On Dose Grande.